Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois. I am Ann Ariano, a member of your Board of Trustees. We are so glad you are here, whether you are present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It is so good to be together. We welcome you to our church and invite you to get to know us better after the service. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys while holding ourselves in covenant through our shared 7 principles. The mission of DuPage UU Church is to gather as an inclusive community to grow in character, mind, and spirit, and to transform the world toward fairness, love, and compassion. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. And I have one announcement. Help your beloved community clean up its beloved space. We need your assistance next Sunday on May 7th after the service to clean up the church, both inside and out. Work with your church friends and have some refreshments too. Sign up in Creeves Hall today or look for the task sign-up form publicized in the weekly updates. If you can come just for a short while, please do. If you'd like, you can also come dressed to church next week. And now, if you are online, we invite you to greet each other through the chat. And if you are here, I invite you to turn to someone you did not come with and greet them with a wave and a good morning greeting.
I light this chalice today for our third Unitarian Universalist principle. We believe in the acceptance of one another and encouragement to a spiritual growth in our congregations.
Good morning. Welcome to this place of love, of communal flourishing. We enter the space to open our hearts, expand our minds, and to see the sacred within each other. Come, let us worship together.
Please rise as you're willing and able and join us in hymn number 352, Find a Stillness.
Standing. I didn't get there quite in time. Please join me in our covenant, maybe. We come together to affirm our relationship with one another, our shared commitment to our Unitarian Universalist principles, and to our DuPage UU Church community. We recognize our agency and connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous in relationship with each other, so that we might transform ourselves and the world.
Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships that we have with each other, our world, and creation. Each week we share our joys and concerns. Today, I'll begin by sharing that the lovely flowers here were given by Mara and Richard Southorn in memory of Wendy Southorn, Richard's mother, Mara's mother-in-law, and William and Clara's grandmother for her birthday on May 12th. We miss her so much. May her memories bring the entire Southorn family blessings. I also have a joy from Mike Winter. Fair skies and safe travels to Carl Nash as he treks with his son Jeremy to Everest Base Camp. Wow. Yes, safe travels indeed, and was telling me that there is a flight that goes into a mountain. Just hard to imagine that. It's quite a trip. Safe travels indeed. Whether our joys and concerns are shared here publicly or they remain in our heart, this is your community. We hold you in both joy, love, flourishing, and in your sorrows as well. Please join me for a moment of prayer. Spirit of life and love, In this season of changing weather, of blossoms and gray skies, of rain and snow and sun, may we remember the gifts of nature that surround us, how they model for us what it means to transform ourselves each season. After a time of rest and renewal in the winter, we are reminded that each of us can blossom and be transformed, transforming ourselves, but also the world into a whole new playground of joy. May we remember that we too can follow this model, embracing change, flourishing through blossoms. May we all embrace our community as we blossom together. It is time to gather.
Hey Sasha, have you heard about the Great Pizza Debate?
No, what's that?
It's where we decide once and for all which pizza topping is the best.
Oh, I see. Well, I like pepperoni.
What? No way. Cheese is clearly the best topping.
Cheese, that's not even a topping.
Yes, it is. Without cheese, it's not even pizza.
But pepperoni has so much flavor.
So does cheese. It's gooey and delicious.
Well, I still think pepperoni's the best.
We'll just have to agree to disagree.
Good morning, class.
Good morning,
Morning,
teacher.
Today we are going to learn about conflict resolution.
Oh boy, I love conflict.
Max, that's not even something to be excited about.
Conflict is when two people have different opinions or ideas. It's important to learn how to handle conflict in a respectful way. Sometimes when people have different perspectives, neither is right or wrong. In this case, it's all about compromise.
So how do we compromise about pizza toppings?
It's a great question, Sasha. One way to compromise is to have half of the pizza with pepperoni and half with cheese.
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, then we can both enjoy our favorite toppings.
Exactly. See, conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can actually lead to creative solutions.
But what if someone is wrong?
Ooh, we can all be wrong sometimes. Sometimes, though, when we are wrong, it is more about being wrong for a person or a situation. After all, we all know that peppers are the best pizza topping.
No way, peppers are gross.
Exactly. Peppers are not right for you, but they are for me.
But what if someone is wrong about something important, like they do not believe that climate change is happening?
That is a great question. Not acknowledging climate change means that someone might continue to do things that are not good for our environment, and that affects us all. In that case, we cannot compromise because what we disagree on is important, so important that it affects the whole planet. But that doesn't mean we have to be disrespectful. The most important thing we can do is share the information we have with others and help them understand the truth. We cannot change other people, but we can help inform them and do our part to live the truth. And sometimes it is helpful to find other compromises. Maybe that person you disagree with about climate change cares about clean drinking water. You might help them fight for their water to be clean. That's a compromise that helps everyone, including our planet, even if you don't agree about climate change.
I guess you're right, Teacher Ryan. Thanks for teaching us about conflict resolution.
Yeah, it's important to be respectful and find common ground.
You're welcome. Now let's all go enjoy some pizza.
Woo!
Yeah.
Play.
Now we'd like to hear from you. What are some things that you compromise about at home that help things go more smoothly?
What television program to watch?
Dinner, what television program to watch? Chores, who does the dishes? Who gets up early with the kids? Who gets up early with the kids? The thermostat setting. Ooh, the thermostat setting. So how about some more? Yes, please.
Could you talk into the mic? It's hard for me to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. What are some other ideas, the things we compromise on?
Where to go on vacation?
Where to go on vacation. Okay. Are there some topics that are too big to compromise on? Yeah? What do you think?
Maybe like what pets to get.
What to get?
Like what pets.
What pets to get? What age to get a phone? Yeah. Climate change. The budget. Ah. Gun control.
Ukraine.
Civil rights. Ukraine.
Abortion.
Abortion. Thank you for sharing those ideas with us so we can hold them together. And now let's sing our children off to class.
Giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many gifts that we are given by this community. Your contribution supports the programs and operations of the DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. Giving is also how we live our values in this world. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization nominated by the congregation and selected by the special offering team. During April, the special offering will benefit the Animal Rescue Foundation, nominated by Jenny Hobbs. ARF is a no-kill, it's fun. ARF is a no-kill, all-volunteer, foster-based organization dedicated to rescuing and rehoming homeless dogs and cats into loving forever homes, including animals that other rescue groups cannot help due to advanced age or exceptional medical needs of the animals. ARF helps save more than 1,000 animals every year. They are completely dependent on donations and fundraising and make a huge impact not only in our local communities, but by taking in animals from other counties and even states that would otherwise be euthanized. The offering is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude. This morning we have an excerpt from Margaret Wheatley's book, Who Do We Choose to Be? Cognitive dissonance is a well-established theory of human cognition. Each person has a sense-making pattern of how things work, developed over time from experiences, acculturation, and other developmental influences. Our view of how the world works gets patterned into our brains as physical neuronal pathways, and these habitual responses act as a filter of information. And we couldn't get through a day if every situation was treated as new. However, when we are looking at information that could be important, dismissing it as familiar or responding habitually to it can be dangerous. Instead of seeing what's new, we see what's new through old eyes, and this gets us into trouble. Even those skilled in the scientific method run into this perceptual problem. In his truly seminal book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, Thomas Kuhn woke us up to the power of paradigms, or worldviews that shape our perceptions. He observed that scientists would behave as we all do when confronted with data that contradicted their working hypothesis. Either they would see only those pieces of data that confirmed their hypotheses, or they would twist their interpretation of the data so it was confirming, or in the most extreme case, they would look at the data and physically not see it. Most of us have no idea of the assumptions and beliefs we use to create our perceptions. We think we're open-minded and curious, when in fact, we all suffer from paradigm blindness. This is the perennial problem with human perception that can only be solved through raising awareness. The 19th century philosopher William James said, "As a rule, we disbelieve all theories and facts for which we have no use." Cognitive dissonance explains this phenomenon. It offers both a diagnosis and a remedy. First, we have to acknowledge that we're all wearing blinders, every single one of us. Everyone has their view of reality, and it will always be dismally incomplete. Yet, whatever the view, it's essential that we note that some views are more accurate and or helpful than others, and as they're based on more information or life-affirming values. We don't see the world as objective, self-existing reality. We can't. Nobody can, even with advanced scientific equipment. We will never know if such a reality exists. But what we do know is that the human brain processes information through a strong filter that has been unconsciously and consciously created as the means to interact with the external environment. Everything alive has cognition and uses it to determine what to notice. We see the world through a well-constructed, tightly controlled personality. This is not a good thing. It reduces our cognitive capacity so that instead of being conscious, we are self-conscious. Opening to the uncertainty, to the need for a new way of seeing, is not what we humans do well. But if we are willing to notice our own pursuit of certainty, to see that our favored ways of working aren't working, then we can use these magnificent powers of perception to obtain a clearer sense of reality. Can certainty give way to curiosity? Can arrogance give way to humility? We see more when there are more of us seeing. We know more when everyone's perspective is sought and incorporated into our learning.
Please rise as you're willing and able and join me in hymn number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life.
Our family are gamers. From board games to video games, you name it, our family has probably played it or would love to play it with you. One of our new favorite games is a Trivial Pursuit-like game. How many of you played Trivial Pursuit? This one's similar. It's called Mind the Gap. And like Trivial Pursuit, it has categories of questions that are to be answered, but on each side of the game board, those questions change because of the different generations. So in one game side, the Gen Z side, you would be asked a question like, what does FOMO, F-O-M-O, mean? And later, on the boomer side, be asked, who sang the song Wake Up Little Susie? So by the way, FOMO means fear of missing out, and Wake Up Little Susie is an Everly Brothers song. The idea of the game is to bridge the gap between generational differences, to mind the gap, if you will, between avocado toast eating millennials and the pull yourself up by the bootstraps boomers. These differences, universally speaking, are not all that different from geographical stereotypes we find in the United States, such as when we speak of East Coasters versus West Coasters versus Midwesterners versus Southerners. The fast-paced, tell them as you see it, liberal East Coasters are often compared to the laid-back, super liberal, consciously healthy, passive-aggressive West Coasters. And in between, we find the conservative, overly polite, even when angry, bless your heart Southerners, and the socially conservative, almost no diversity, take them at their word, handshaking sincerity of the Midwest. Does this ring true to you all? Now, obviously, these universal generalizations are not always true. I'm actually an Xennial, which is a small period of time between the Gen Xers and the Millennials. And while I was born in the Midwest, in Western Michigan, even as a child, I had traits that were much more East Coast. And when I moved to New Jersey and lived there for 17 years, I felt right at home with the speak your mind, but genuinely deeply care for chosen family people of the East Coast. And yet, I struggled at times with the bluntness of the East Coasters. I remember one of the members who volunteered in my office at the Unitarian Universalist Church I served in New Jersey, who would often share exactly what she felt like every single Monday when she showed up into my office. And I mean everything. And sometimes it was difficult to separate her opinions from my personal feelings or the ownership I had of something that she was critiquing. But the thing was, it was just her opinion, and she never meant it meanly. She just meant to share her thoughts, free her thoughts from her heart. She was thoroughly East Coast. While this tendency to be brutally honest with other people is much more pronounced on the East Coast and likely non-existent here in the Midwest, even in the East Coast, people didn't like tension, despite their brutal honesty. One could say the same of the stereotypes of the boomer generation, who are assumed to hold tradition at a higher value than the authenticity valued by millennials and Gen Zers. But the truth is, tension or conflict, or potential conflict, is something that very few people actually enjoy facing. In fact, we will go to great lengths to not face tension and conflict. Sometimes we will ignore a situation or a person or problem for decades just so we don't have to deal with the tension. We do this because we don't want to hurt other people or ourselves. We also avoid tension because it literally makes us uncomfortable. For many of us, it can cause anxiety. In our avoidance, however, we can cause other problems. Sometimes we become passive-aggressive in order to avoid directness, and sometimes we employ passive-aggressiveness as a way to address the problem. Make no doubt, passive-aggressiveness hurts when you're on the receiving end of it. But it also hurts the person that's dishing it out because it isolates them. In fact, even if we're not passive-aggressive when we avoid tension, we isolate ourselves, holding back a piece of ourselves. And in the process, we can become resentful. And we take this out on people we do get along with and want in our lives. And all of this impacts our community. In isolating ourselves from one another, we isolate from each other, even the people we want. That is, it's noticeable when I don't talk to someone that I'm struggling with, right? Other people notice, and then they don't interact with those folks either. This is a perfect example of something that transcends generations. Think back to junior high or high school. Think about the cliques that you experienced then. This is an extreme example of how we just stay with the people we like, but it fits the metaphor. As we grow older, we realize that differences and tensions begin to mean less, at least mostly. We know that even as adults, we have people we'd rather be around than others, right? Yet we avoid people because we don't want tension. And we are just repeating those same behaviors that we learned in junior high and high school. As a side note, though, I do want to say that when I'm speaking about tension, I'm not speaking about abuse and harm. That's a different kind of tension that has to be approached more carefully, lest it cause more harm to ourselves or other people. Here, I am speaking about tension as differences of opinion, like pizza toppings, and the tension that is caused by fundamental differences, like climate change or social or political persuasion. Most people need a truly compelling reason to confront tension. Often it has to be a serious infraction, or you wait until your last straw was plucked, and then the consequences can be dire. At that point, it's often too late to repair the tension. Rather, the tension explodes in anger and frustration, which makes the tension worse, and often the original tension is usurped by this new form of tension called anger. Does any of this seem familiar to you? Yeah. Tension, you see, is most often caused by the lens with which we view the world. And when that lens comes into relationship with another person's lens, that's when tension can flare. Our lenses are shaped by our upbringing, including those geographical and generational stereotypes I mentioned earlier, but also religion and family and social experiences. They all form our lens, and it is particular to each of us. When we understand the limits of our lens and acknowledge that someone else has another way that might be just as valid and important as our own lens, we can approach tension in a new way. The biggest lesson that I have learned about tension, about conflict, is that it requires curiosity. And I cannot emphasize this enough, because curiosity is a superhuman tool that can make tension disappear, can solve tension, and sometimes it even makes us willing to embrace tension. It's quite a claim, I know. But you see, curiosity requires that we do not make assumptions about what happened, what didn't happen, what might happen. Curiosity helps us avoid assumptions about motives, and curiosity lets us see each other as worthy and holy beings and honor our flourishing rather than making us adversaries. Most importantly, though, that attitude of curiosity must first be applied to the self. We need to examine our own assumptions, our own motives, our own cultural, geographical, generational, social, and learned universal stereotypes. Curiosity means examining our own lens first. Is the tension because I am being exposed to something that's different? Is that different thing actually bad? Am I the cause of tension? These questions allow us to examine ourselves and our own part in the tension. Every tension, every good moment, every interaction has more than one perspective. And the truth lies somewhere between at least two, if not more, perspectives. Thus, curiosity lets us question and gather information from ourselves and others that offer a way forward. By examining ourselves first, we do two things to ease the tension. One, we release some of our defensiveness, or at least acknowledge that it's there, which means we're less likely to get triggered and cause even more tension. And two, we open ourselves to hearing and listening to another perspective. After all, we cannot know what another person experienced or what their lens looks like. We cannot understand their lens until we become curious about it. When we begin by cultivating curiosity, we open our hearts and our minds to information gathering, a skill and a gift that lets us better complete the picture of tension and how we might address it. But curiosity also offers us another gift, empathy. Curiosity lets us imagine not only all those universal stereotypes that we assume applies to another person, but also the particulars that we don't know of another person. So if you've ever seen that infographic of a bar graph, and one small section is labeled what we know about a person, and the larger section says what we don't know about them and what they're struggling with, that's what I'm talking about here. We cannot understand all of those pieces of another person. And so curiosity lets us open our hearts and minds to information gathering, which then means that we can start to see some of those other pieces of that bar graph. It also lets us know that maybe somebody's just having a bad day. We can cultivate empathy for one another using curiosity. But curiosity has another advantage. Curiosity means we can create space that makes us and those we are with in tension feel safe, or at least safer. It's free from assumption. We can cultivate honesty and transparency. We can show up authentically, and we can find the truth in that. When we employ curiosity in tense situations, we prioritize dignity and worth over comfort. This means we honor relationship and community over self and being right. Curiosity is a tool that lets us gather the information we need to see the truth and all the complexity that it involves, because truth is never black and white. And when we employ curiosity and tension, we can impact an entire community, not just those involved. When curiosity is our approach, we're able to embrace each other into new depths and find new ways of growing together. Ultimately, though, when a person and a community employ curiosity in tension, we cultivate tools of discernment that let us do the hard work of justice in the world. Curiosity is more than a tool for interpersonal conflict. Curiosity is the method by which we bridge that vast tension of political separation. Curiosity can help us see a more complete picture of injustice and develop tools that are for everyone. Curiosity is how we can resist the temptation to avoid tension, because it values people and relationship over self. Curiosity means we do not other people into artificial categories like boomer and millennial, but also honor the truth that those categories hold. Curiosity is a complexity of multiple truths rooted in the dignity of each other and prioritizing our community, our beloved community. And curiosity is absolutely not our go-to response in tension. Likely because tension is rooted in the same physiological responses as fear and anger. Tension incites in our bodies a protective layer, lest we feel shame and anger. So let's go back to some sermons that I gave in January and February. When we feel those feelings, what do? We breathe. Because breathing disrupts the physiological response. Then we consider how we might explore ourselves, examine and investigate the tension to honor the inherent worth and dignity of everyone, and to hold our community at the center of our care and intention. Together, only together, can we find the strength to engage in curiosity for ourselves, each other, and our dearly beloved community. May it be so.
Please rise as you're willing and able and join in hymn number 182, Oh, the Beauty in a Life. Oh, the beauty in a life that illumines honor anew, that models wise and gracious ways to every seeker, that every day shall serve joy and do the right. Oh, praise the life whose beauty shows the justice true. Let
seated. Let us go forth, embracing curiosity over assumption, employing inquisitiveness over anger or fear. Let us examine ourselves before each other. And together, let us move towards flourishing as we build our beloved community.
As always, thank you for the beautiful music. Please join me as we extinguish the light of our chalice. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you.